Welcome to the Trend Reddit channel. This is where we come together to share interesting, funny, and emotional stories about family life. Each episode will be a journey through familiar situations that any of us might encounter in our own families. Let's laugh, reflect, and sometimes shed a tear together with these meaningful stories. If you love heartwarming and relatable stories, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you won't miss any of our videos. And make sure to click the notification bell to get the earliest updates on our new episodes. Thank you for supporting and being part of Trend Reddit. In a quaint little town, where laughter echoed through sunlit streets, there lived a spirited girl named Mia. At just 10 years old, Mia radiated joy, her laughter a melody that brightened the lives of everyone around her. She was the heart of her family. Her nurturing mother, Alice, and her loving father, Mark, cherished their vibrant daughter. Their home was a warm haven, filled with love, adventures, and countless shared moments that painted their lives with happiness. Mia was not just any child, she was a chatterbox, adored by her friends and teachers alike. Her enthusiasm for life was infectious, lighting up even the dullest of days. Friends would often flock to her, drawn by her lively spirit and captivating stories. She had a way of making everything seem magical, whether it was a trip to the park or an afternoon spent playing in the backyard. However, as the weeks turned into months, subtle signs of change began to shadow her once bright spirit. It started with small complaints. Mia often mentioned feeling stomach pains, a slight discomfort that seemed to come and go. Initially dismissed as typical childhood woes, these complaints became more frequent. Soon, her lively chatter faded into a quieter demeanor, and Alice and Mark exchanged worried glances, sensing something deeper was troubling their beloved daughter. They felt a shift in the air, a growing concern that something was amiss in Mia's world. One evening, while preparing dinner, Alice caught sight of Mia sitting silently at the kitchen table, her gaze fixed on the floor. The lively spark that once danced in her eyes had dimmed, replaced by an unsettling quietness. "Mia, sweetheart, what's on your mind?" Alice asked gently, her maternal instincts kicking in. Mia shrugged, offering a small, non-committal response. Alice felt a pang of worry as she studied her daughter, knowing that the changes were not merely a phase. Days passed, and the situation did not improve. Mark, who had been keeping a close eye on Mia, noticed the gradual decline in her spirit. Once the embodiment of joy, Mia now seemed preoccupied, lost in her thoughts. He tried to engage her in conversation, hoping to draw her out of her shell, but she often replied with vague answers, leaving him feeling more helpless with each attempt. Their close-knit family, once filled with laughter and shared adventures, felt the weight of an unspoken concern. Mark and Alice began to share their worries with one another, each expressing a growing anxiety that Mia's troubles were more than just a fleeting moment of childhood sadness. It felt as if they were on the precipice of something significant, yet they could not quite grasp what it was. Then came the moment that would change everything. One day, Alice noticed a slight bulge in Mia's stomach, a physical manifestation of the concerns that had been building over time. Alarmed, she called Mark, and together they rushed Mia to the hospital, their hearts pounding with dread. The sterile smell of antiseptic greeted them as they entered the bustling emergency room, amplifying the anxiety that had taken root in their hearts. After a series of tests that felt like an eternity, the doctor delivered the unimaginable news: Mia was several months pregnant. The revelation hit them like a tidal wave, leaving them reeling in disbelief. Mark felt a surge of anger and confusion, while Alice was engulfed by grief and guilt, struggling to comprehend how this could happen to their little girl. The weight of the situation pressed down on them, and the room felt suffocating as they grappled with the implications of what they had just learned. As they sat in shock, the implications of the news began to sink in. Questions flooded their minds. How had this happened? Who was responsible? They had spent years nurturing and protecting Mia, and now they felt as if their world had crumbled around them. They were left to navigate a reality they had never anticipated, thrust into a whirlwind of emotions that left them feeling vulnerable and afraid. In the days that followed, their family dynamic changed dramatically. Mark's protective instincts kicked in, and he became determined to uncover the truth behind Mia's situation. he felt a fierce need to shield her from the world that had betrayed her innocence. Alice, on the other hand, was consumed by guilt, replaying every moment in her mind, questioning whether she could have missed signs or signals that could have prevented this. As they embarked on a tumultuous journey to seek answers, both parents found themselves grappling with their emotions, and the search for the truth became an all-consuming mission. They questioned everyone Mia had interacted with, hoping to piece together the puzzle of how their vibrant daughter had found herself in such a dire situation. Mia, meanwhile, remained confused and frightened, unaware of the full weight of the situation she was in. When gently asked about her pregnancy, she insisted that no one had hurt her, her innocence and confusion deepening her parents' sense of helplessness. The shadows of doubt loomed large, and with each passing day, the need for clarity became more urgent. The once happy household was now filled with tension and uncertainty, each family member grappling with their own feelings of despair, anger, and confusion. As they moved forward, the search for answers became intertwined with their hopes for Mia's future, leading them down a path that would test the very foundations of their family. In this fragile state, the Williams family faced a daunting reality, one that would challenge their perceptions of love, trust, and resilience. The journey ahead promised to be a tumultuous one, fraught with challenges that would force them to confront the harsh truths of their situation, and to find the strength to support each other through the storm. Little did they know, the journey to uncover the truth would ultimately lead them to a deeper understanding of their family bonds, and what it truly meant to love unconditionally. In the aftermath of the harrowing revelation, Mia's parents found themselves engulfed in a storm of confusion and heartache. Their once idyllic family life was shattered, and the once lively home was now a place filled with hushed whispers and heavy hearts. Each day felt like an uphill battle as they tried to come to grips with the unfathomable reality of their daughter's situation. Determined to uncover the truth, Alice and Mark embarked on a quest for answers. They meticulously compiled a list of everyone who had been in Mia's life over the past year, hoping that some clue might reveal the identity of the person responsible for her condition. Every interaction, every encounter was scrutinized, as their minds raced with possibilities. Mark's anger simmered just beneath the surface. He couldn't fathom how someone could hurt his little girl, and the need for justice burned fiercely within him. He began questioning Mia's friends and classmates, seeking any hint that could lead him to the perpetrator. His conversations were charged with emotion, and he often found himself grappling with feelings of helplessness as he faced the grim reality that his daughter had been betrayed. Meanwhile, Alice's heart was heavy with guilt. She couldn't shake the feeling that she had somehow failed Mia, that perhaps there were signs she had overlooked. Days turned into nights as she replayed every moment in her mind, searching for clues she might have missed. Her nurturing instincts screamed at her to protect Mia, yet she felt paralyzed by the enormity of the situation. One evening, while going through some of Mia's belongings, Alice stumbled upon an old notebook filled with the girl's thoughts and dreams. Flipping through the pages, she found a mixture of innocent musings and darker reflections that made her heart ache. In one entry, Mia had written about feeling different lately, but Alice had dismissed it as typical childhood angst. Now, she couldn't help but wonder if there had been deeper feelings at play that Mia had been too afraid to share. As the days passed, the tension between the two families escalated. Mark's determination to confront Ethan's family led him to engage with his neighbors, trying to piece together any details that could shed light on what had happened. The once friendly interactions now felt strained, as whispers and gossip spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. In stark contrast, Paul and Sarah found themselves grappling with disbelief. They were torn between protecting their son and confronting the harsh truth of what he had done. Paul often retreated into his workshop, working on projects to distract himself from the turmoil swirling around him. However, Sarah was more vocal, confronting Mia's parents when they crossed paths, her eyes filled with a mixture of anger and despair. One afternoon, Alice decided to reach out to Mia's school, hoping to speak with her teachers. She wanted to understand if there had been any changes in Mia's behavior or any incidents that might have raised concerns. As she entered the school, she was met with sympathetic glances from the staff, but the reality of the situation felt overwhelming. The principal, a kind woman named Mrs. Thompson, sat Alice down and listened as she poured out her heart, Together, they went through Mia's records and discussed her interactions with other students. Alice discovered that Mia had started spending more time with Ethan in recent months, participating in various school projects and activities. While this initially seemed innocent, it now sent alarm bells ringing in her mind. Back at home, Mia remained a mix of confusion and sadness. She struggled to process the whirlwind of emotions that surrounded her. Even the comforting presence of her parents felt different, their worry hung in the air like an unwelcome guest. When she was approached about the events that had transpired, she clung to her innocence, insisting that nothing wrong had happened and that she loved playing with Ethan as a friend. However, the shadows of doubt cast by her parents loomed large. They continued to dig deeper, interviewing neighbors and acquaintances in a desperate attempt to uncover the truth. Each conversation felt like a puzzle piece, but they struggled to fit them together amidst the chaos of their emotions. One night, Mark's anger reached a boiling point. He confronted Ethan directly, his voice a low growl as he demanded answers. The confrontation was tense, filled with accusations and accusations deflected. Ethan stood firm, his eyes wide with fear, unsure of how to respond. He insisted that he had no idea how Mia had become pregnant and that he would never hurt her. Mark, however, was consumed by rage and fear for his daughter, unwilling to accept any form of innocence. As the days blurred into weeks, both families found themselves navigating an emotional minefield. Conversations turned into confrontations, and the bonds of friendship that once united them felt stretched to their breaking point. The community, once a haven of support, now felt fractured as the gossip spread like wildfire, each whispered word fanning the flames of anger and resentment. In the midst of the turmoil, Mia remained isolated, caught between her parents' fears and her own confusion. She longed for the carefree days of her childhood, the laughter, and the innocence that seemed to slip further away with each passing moment. As the storm of emotions raged around her, she couldn't help but wonder if she would ever regain the life she once knew. The search for answers continued, but the path forward seemed increasingly clouded. Each revelation brought with it new layers of pain and heartache. The journey to uncover the truth would require more than just determination, it would demand a reckoning with the fragile threads that held their lives together. As they pushed forward, they knew that the journey was only beginning, and the impact of their choices would resonate for years to come. As the emotional upheaval settled into a grim routine, Alice and Mark plunged into their search for the truth with renewed urgency. They felt an overwhelming need to protect their daughter and understand how her innocence had been so cruelly taken from her. With each passing day, the weight of their task loomed heavier, but they were resolute. Their commitment to uncovering the truth became their guiding light in the darkness. Determined to leave no stone unturned, the couple began by questioning everyone who had come into contact with Mia in the past year. They meticulously compiled a list that included her teachers, classmates, neighbors, and family friends. Each interaction had the potential to reveal a piece of the puzzle, and they were ready to follow every lead. They spent evenings poring over Mia's school records, searching for patterns or incidents that could hint at a troubling undercurrent. Mark took the lead in reaching out to Mia's teachers, starting with Mrs. Thompson, who had always shown a keen interest in Mia's well-being. He arranged a meeting with her, hoping she could provide insights into any changes in Mia's behavior. When they sat down together, Mark's heart raced with a mix of hope and dread. He presented his concerns, speaking earnestly about the drastic shift he had witnessed in Mia's demeanor. Mrs. Thompson listened attentively, her brow furrowing as she recalled Mia's recent interactions. She mentioned that Mia had begun to withdraw, showing signs of anxiety that were atypical for her. A few weeks prior, she had noticed Mia spending more time with Ethan and had even thought it odd how closely the two had grown in their friendship. The mention of Ethan's name sent a shiver down Mark's spine, reaffirming his suspicions. Meanwhile, Alice decided to speak with Mia's friends, hoping they might shed light on any troubling occurrences. She approached Lily, Mia's closest friend, during a casual gathering. As they talked, Alice gently probed about any changes Mia might have shared with her. Lily hesitated, her face clouded with concern. She mentioned a few incidents where Mia seemed distracted and had hinted at feeling uncomfortable, but Alice sensed there was more that remained unsaid. As the investigation deepened, Mark and Alice began to question the neighborhood as well. They made a point to connect with other parents, attending gatherings and engaging in conversations that, under normal circumstances, would have felt lighthearted. Instead, they were tinged with an undercurrent of tension. Mark's intensity became evident as he sought information, his eyes scanning each interaction for clues while Alice maintained a gentle approach, hoping to foster trust. One evening, after a particularly difficult day of conversations, Alice suggested they visit Ethan's house. It was a delicate proposition, but they felt it necessary to confront the boy's family directly. Mark agreed, fueled by a mix of anger and determination, yet Alice hoped for a more civil dialogue that might uncover some truths. As they approached the house, both parents felt their hearts race with anticipation and dread. When they knocked on the door, Ethan answered with a tentative smile that quickly faded upon seeing the seriousness etched on their faces. Mark wasted no time, demanding to speak with Ethan's parents. Paul and Sarah appeared shortly after, their expressions shifting from confusion to concern as they realized the gravity of the situation. The conversation that ensued was charged with emotions. Mark confronted them about their son, his voice a mix of anger and desperation. He accused Ethan of being responsible for Mia's pregnancy, expressing disbelief that a child could be involved in such a situation. Sarah looked visibly shaken, her hands trembling as she tried to process the allegations. Paul, however, reacted defensively, insisting that Ethan would never hurt anyone. As the confrontation escalated, Alice interjected, attempting to steer the conversation towards a more constructive dialogue. She expressed her concern for both families and emphasized the need for understanding and cooperation. But the tension remained palpable, and accusations flew between the parents. It was a painful scene, exposing the fractures that had developed between two families who had once shared laughter and friendship. In the days that followed, Alice and Mark's search intensified. They felt an insatiable need for answers, fueled by the growing anxiety surrounding Mia's condition. Mark began to compile a timeline of events, marking down dates and interactions that he hoped would create a clearer picture. It became a shared project, a way for them to channel their frustration into something tangible. Despite their determination, Mia remained withdrawn, struggling to process the whirlwind of emotions surrounding her. Every time her parents approached the topic, she shut down, retreating into silence. Their efforts to communicate felt increasingly futile, and the gap between them widened. It pained Alice to see her daughter suffer, and she often found herself crying silently in the night, grappling with feelings of helplessness. Mia's world continued to shrink as the burden of the truth weighed heavily on her. The friends she once laughed with now felt like strangers, and the once vibrant colors of her life faded into shades of gray. She longed for normalcy, for the carefree days of childhood, but each day was a reminder of the complexities and harsh realities she had been thrust into. Alice's heart ached for her daughter, and she found herself constantly reflecting on the past, wishing she could turn back time to protect Mia from the painful truth that had emerged. It became clear that the search for answers would not only be a quest for truth but also a journey of healing. As they delved deeper into their investigation, they realized that understanding the events leading to Mia's situation was only the first step. They needed to confront the emotional aftermath, not just for Mia but for themselves as well. In this tangled web of emotions, secrets, and revelations, the path to the truth was fraught with challenges. But Alice and Mark were united in their commitment to protect their daughter, driven by a fierce love that transcended the pain they were enduring. As they navigated this difficult terrain, they began to understand that the truth would not just uncover the past but would shape their family's future in ways they could never have anticipated. As days passed, the weight of uncertainty hung heavily in the air, thickening the tension between the two families. Mark and Alice found themselves consumed by their search for answers, yet a pivotal moment loomed just around the corner. It was during one of these moments that everything would change. One afternoon, Mark noticed Mia playing quietly in her room, her dolls spread out before her as she crafted intricate stories. He watched from the doorway, initially finding solace in her creativity. But as he observed, something struck him as peculiar. There was a certain way Mia manipulated the dolls, a mimicry of interactions that made him uneasy. It was as if she were reenacting something deeply troubling, and the hairs on the back of his neck stood on end. Curiosity mixed with dread compelled him to enter her room. He gently approached Mia, his heart heavy with concern. "Hey, sweetheart, what are you playing?" he asked, trying to keep his voice light despite the turmoil swirling in his chest. Mia looked up, her eyes wide with surprise, but there was a hint of something unspoken in her gaze. "Just a game with my dolls, Daddy," she replied, her voice soft and hesitant. Mark leaned in closer, noticing that one of the dolls was positioned in a way that mirrored a moment he had witnessed earlier. "It looks like you're having fun. Did you play a game like this with anyone else?" he asked, probing gently. She hesitated, her small fingers fiddling with the fabric of her doll's dress. Finally, she spoke. "Sometimes I play with Ethan. We do the same thing." The mention of Ethan sent a wave of icy realization crashing over Mark. Suddenly, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. Mark's heart raced as the implications of her words sank in. "What do you mean by the same thing?" he pressed, his voice barely above a whisper. Mia looked confused, her brow furrowing as she struggled to articulate her thoughts. "Just, like, pretending," she said, her innocence stark against the gravity of the situation. But the weight of her words hung in the air, and Mark felt the blood drain from his face as he connected the dots. "If you find it interesting, please like it. If not, please comment number 1. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this video." Without a moment's hesitation, he stormed out of the room, the urgency driving him forward. He knew he had to confront Ethan, the neighbor's boy who had become a focal point in the chaos that had overtaken their lives. Fueled by a blend of fear and rage, Mark marched over to Ethan's house, determination coursing through his veins. When he reached the front door, he didn't knock, he simply barged in, startling Paul and Sarah, who were seated in the living room. The tension was palpable as Mark locked eyes with them, the storm brewing within him evident on his face. "Where's Ethan?" he demanded, his voice low and filled with barely contained fury. Paul rose to his feet, his expression shifting from confusion to alarm. "What's going on?" he asked, but Mark was already beyond reason. "Your son is responsible for what's happening to my daughter," Mark shouted, his anger boiling over. "I want to know what he did." The confrontation ignited a firestorm of emotions in the room. Paul stood firm, incredulous at the accusations being hurled at his family. "Ethan would never hurt Mia." "This is outrageous," he retorted, his voice rising in defense of his son. But Mark wasn't backing down. "Then why was Mia playing these games? Why is she pretending to do things that no 10-year-old should even be thinking about?" As voices escalated, Sarah stepped in, trying to defuse the situation. "Let's just talk about this calmly. We need to understand what's going on." But the tension in the room was thick, each word adding to the charged atmosphere. The door swung open, and Ethan appeared, his expression a mix of fear and confusion. He took one look at the scene unfolding and felt the weight of the accusations hanging in the air. "What's happening?" he stammered, his eyes darting between the adults. Mark's gaze hardened as he turned to face Ethan. "You need to tell me what you've done with Mia. You're not a child anymore, you need to take responsibility for your actions." Ethan looked bewildered, shaking his head as he tried to grasp the gravity of the situation. "I didn't do anything. I swear. We just played." His voice trembled, the realization of what was at stake sinking in. The argument reached a fever pitch, and in the chaos, Mark's heart raced with dread. He could see the fear in Ethan's eyes, but it was a fear that was overshadowed by the anger of a father desperate to protect his child. "This isn't a game anymore. You need to face the truth." The confrontation spiraled, accusations flying between both families. But amidst the chaos, the gravity of the situation pressed heavily on their hearts. Each adult was left grappling with their role in the unfolding tragedy, their emotions raw and unfiltered. After what felt like an eternity, Mark stormed out, leaving a shocked Ethan and a bewildered Paul and Sarah in his wake. The air was thick with unspoken words and unresolved tension as the realization of the reality they faced sunk in. It was a pivotal moment, a turning point that would shape their lives forever. Back at home, Mark confronted Alice with the weight of the discovery. "I can't believe it," he said, his voice trembling. "It's Ethan. Mia mentioned him playing the same games. We have to figure out how this happened." Alice felt her heart drop as the implications of Mark's words resonated deeply within her. The hunt for answers had led them to the brink of a painful truth, one that would force them to confront not only the actions of their daughter and Ethan but the very fabric of their families. That night, as darkness enveloped their home, the weight of uncertainty pressed heavily on their hearts. The discovery had ignited a firestorm of emotions, and the road ahead was fraught with challenges that none of them could have foreseen. But they were united in their quest for understanding, determined to navigate the pain and find a way to heal together. The aftermath of the confrontation left both families reeling. As the dust settled, the reality of Mia's pregnancy loomed larger than ever, casting a long shadow over their lives. Mark and Alice found themselves grappling with an unbearable tension, a sense of dread that permeated every interaction. Despite the anger and confusion that had erupted, a chilling silence now filled the air, a silence pregnant with uncertainty and unanswered questions. Days turned into an agonizing blur as they awaited the results of the DNA test. The thought of what was to come weighed heavily on Alice and Mark, who spent sleepless nights wrestling with their emotions. They clung to the hope that perhaps there had been a mistake, a misinterpretation of the circumstances. But deep down, both parents feared the confirmation of their worst nightmare. Finally, the day arrived when they were to receive the results. Alice paced the living room, her heart pounding in her chest. Mark stood by the window, his gaze fixed on the horizon as if he could will the answers to appear. When the phone rang, both of them jumped, the sound cutting through the thick silence that had enveloped their home. Mark answered, his voice steady but trembling with anticipation. The voice on the other end was calm, almost clinical, as it delivered the information that would change everything. "Mr. and Mrs. Williams, the results of the DNA test have come back. Ethan is indeed the father of Mia's baby." The words hung in the air like a dark cloud, suffocating them with the weight of their implications. Mark felt a rush of emotions, anger, despair, and an overwhelming sense of betrayal. Alice clutched the phone, her heart racing as she processed the reality of the situation. It was a confirmation of everything they had feared, and yet hearing it spoken aloud made it all the more real. Mark hung up, his face pale as he turned to Alice, who stood frozen in place, tears streaming down her cheeks. "It's true. Ethan is the father," he said, his voice a mixture of disbelief and heartbreak. They stood there, the gravity of the revelation crashing down around them, their minds racing to comprehend the magnitude of what had just been confirmed. In that moment, both parents felt their world shatter into a million pieces. The innocence of their daughter was gone, and they were left grappling with the loss. Alice sank onto the couch, her body trembling as she tried to hold back sobs. Mark joined her, wrapping his arms around her, but the comfort felt hollow in the face of their shared grief. "How could this happen?" Alice whispered, her voice filled with anguish. "We should have protected her better. How did we let it come to this?" Mark felt a surge of guilt wash over him, mixed with a fierce protectiveness for Mia. "We didn't know, Alice. We had no idea what was happening right under our noses. We have to focus on her now," he replied, trying to pull them both back from the edge of despair. The tension in their home escalated as they prepared to face the truth together. They knew they couldn't hide from what had happened, nor could they shield Mia from the reality of her situation. The confrontation with Ethan's family was inevitable, and they braced themselves for the painful discussions that lay ahead. As the hours passed, the weight of the news began to settle in. The couple spent time reflecting on their family dynamics, the choices they had made, and the relationships they had nurtured. They realized that their fight was not just for Mia but also for their own sense of understanding and healing. They needed to navigate the tumultuous waters ahead with clarity and resolve. With heavy hearts, they decided it was time to meet with Ethan's family again. They needed to confront the situation together, to understand the circumstances that had led to this point. Arranging a meeting felt like stepping onto a battlefield, but both couples knew it was necessary. When the day finally arrived, tension filled the air as they gathered in Ethan's living room. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken words, each family struggling to find the right way to address the pain that had brought them together. Mark took a deep breath, trying to steady himself as he faced Paul and Sarah. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us," he began, his voice firm but trembling. "We need to talk about what's happened and how we can move forward for the sake of our children." Paul nodded, his expression serious, while Sarah looked visibly shaken. "We're here to listen," she replied softly, her eyes filled with concern. "We need to understand what happened." As the conversation unfolded, Mark and Alice laid bare their fears and frustrations. They spoke about Mia's innocence, the confusion she was experiencing, and the emotional toll this had taken on their family. Each word was charged with raw emotion, as they struggled to navigate the delicate balance of confrontation and compassion. Ethan sat quietly, listening to the adults, his eyes downcast. The weight of his actions bore heavily on him, and he felt the burden of guilt wash over him as he realized the consequences of his choices. He wanted to speak up, to explain that it hadn't been intentional, that they were just kids playing games, but the words wouldn't come. Mark noticed Ethan's discomfort and turned his gaze toward the boy. "We want to understand what happened, Ethan. We need to know how you and Mia got to this point. It's important for all of us to face the truth." Ethan finally looked up, his voice trembling. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen. We were just playing in. I didn't think it would go this far," he stammered, his guilt palpable. As the conversation continued, each family was forced to confront the uncomfortable truths that lay beneath the surface. It was a painful exchange, but necessary for the healing process that lay ahead. The realization that both children were affected by the decisions of adults added another layer of complexity to the unfolding situation. The meeting culminated in a commitment from both families to support Mia and Ethan through the challenges that awaited them. Mark and Alice knew that while the road ahead would be fraught with difficulties, they had to unite to navigate this new reality. It was a collective effort to protect their children and help them heal, even as they themselves grappled with the magnitude of the situation. As they left Ethan's house, the gravity of the conversation lingered in the air. It was a step forward, albeit a painful one, and both families understood that their journey together had only just begun. The confirmation of Ethan's paternity was not just a revelation, it was a turning point, a moment that would define the path ahead for Mia, for Ethan, and for both families as they faced the uncertain future together. As the tumult surrounding Mia and Ethan reached a fever pitch, the pressure of the situation began to take a toll on Mia's health. The emotional upheaval had been overwhelming, and it soon manifested in ways that no one could have anticipated. One evening, as Mia lay in bed, her heart raced with anxiety, her small body trembling from the weight of the world on her young shoulders. Alice, ever attuned to her daughter's needs, sensed that something was off. She entered Mia's room, finding her daughter curled up under the blankets, pale and restless. "Mia, sweetheart, are you feeling okay?" Alice asked, her voice laced with concern. Mia turned toward her mother, her eyes wide and filled with worry. "I don't know, Mom. I feel funny," she admitted, clutching her stomach as a wave of discomfort washed over her. Alarm bells rang in Alice's mind. "Let's get you checked out," she said, her heart racing as she helped Mia sit up. They made their way to the car, and the quiet ride to the hospital was filled with an unsettling tension. Mark, who had been waiting anxiously at home, quickly joined them when he received the call. Upon their arrival, the sterile scent of antiseptic filled the air, amplifying the anxiety that had taken root in their hearts. They were led to a room where doctors began their examination. The medical staff moved with a sense of urgency, and Mia's small frame felt dwarfed by the larger-than-life equipment surrounding her. The doctor ran a series of tests, probing Mia's symptoms with care. She asked questions about any discomfort, and Mia described the pain she had been feeling. As the minutes dragged on, Alice and Mark exchanged worried glances, feeling helpless as they watched their daughter undergo the scrutiny of medical professionals. After what felt like an eternity, the doctor finally returned with results that sent shockwaves through the family. "Mia is in labor," she said, her voice steady but serious. "Given her age and the circumstances, we need to monitor her closely." There are potential complications. The room fell silent as the weight of her words settled in. Mark felt as if the floor had fallen out from under him, and Alice's heart sank at the thought of her daughter experiencing such a life-altering event at such a young age. What does that mean for her? Mark asked, his voice shaking with fear. The doctor explained that Mia's young body was not fully prepared for childbirth, and there were risks involved. We will do everything we can to ensure both Mia and the baby are safe, she reassured them, but the uncertainty loomed large. As Mia was prepped for further monitoring, the atmosphere grew increasingly tense. Mark held Alice's hand tightly, each squeeze a silent promise of support as they faced this unimaginable situation together. The reality of what Mia was about to endure struck hard, and the urgency of the moment pressed heavily upon their hearts. Time seemed to stretch endlessly as they waited for news. In the quiet of the hospital room, anxiety crackled in the air, punctuated by the beeping machines and the soft murmurs of medical staff. Mark paced back and forth, unable to sit still, while Alice sat beside Mia, brushing her hair away from her forehead. "You're so strong, Mia. Just focus on your breathing," she encouraged, trying to instill a sense of calm amidst the chaos. As the labor progressed, Mia experienced waves of pain that were both foreign and frightening. Tears streamed down her face as she grappled with the intensity of what was happening. The innocent joys of childhood felt a world away as she faced a reality no child should ever have to endure. Suddenly, the door swung open, and Jacob rushed in, his face a mixture of fear and determination. He had learned of Mia's situation and wanted to be by her side. "I'm here, Mia," he said softly, kneeling beside her. "You're not alone." His presence provided a sense of comfort amidst the storm, and Mia reached for his hand, gripping it tightly as the contractions intensified. In the delivery room, doctors worked swiftly, monitoring both Mia and the baby. The atmosphere buzzed with urgency as they prepared for what lay ahead. Mark and Alice remained just outside the door, anxiety etched on their faces, praying for their daughter's safety. As the hours dragged on, the fear that had gripped them transformed into a collective resolve. They had to stay strong for Mia, who needed their support more than ever. Time blurred as they moved between waiting rooms and consultation areas, the sense of dread thickening with every passing moment. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, a nurse emerged to update them. "Mia is stable, but we're closely monitoring her condition. It's going to be a difficult delivery, but we're prepared," she said, her tone professional yet compassionate. Mark and Alice felt a flicker of hope, but the uncertainty remained. As night fell, the waiting area became filled with anxious family members, and the gravity of the situation drew them closer together. Everyone knew that Mia's life, and the lives of many others, would be changed forever after this night. Inside the delivery room, the atmosphere shifted as Mia pushed through the pain, each wave of agony accompanied by Jacob's encouraging words. He squeezed her hand tightly, whispering promises of a brighter future and urging her to keep going. With every contraction, Mia felt a mix of fear and determination. She was scared but knew she had to be strong, not just for herself but for the tiny life she was about to bring into the world. The struggle was monumental, but as she took a deep breath and prepared for another push, she focused on the future that awaited her beyond the pain. In those harrowing moments, the line between childhood and adulthood blurred. Mia found herself at a crossroads, fighting for not only her life but also for the life of her child. As she summoned every ounce of strength, she felt the overwhelming love and support from Jacob, her parents, and the medical staff who stood by her side. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of struggle, the cries of a newborn echoed through the delivery room, piercing the silence like a beacon of hope. In that moment, everything shifted. Mia, exhausted yet filled with an indescribable sense of accomplishment, realized that she had crossed the threshold. Despite the fears and uncertainties, she had given life, and that act of courage would forever mark the beginning of a new chapter for her and her family. As the dust settled, Mia understood that while the journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, the love surrounding her would guide them through the tumultuous waters ahead. The moment of truth arrived when the cries of the newborn filled the delivery room, echoing like a signal of hope amid the turmoil. As Mia lay there, exhausted and trembling, the realization of what she had accomplished washed over her. She had brought a new life into the world, and with it, a glimmer of possibility for the future. In the hours that followed, as the hospital buzzed with activity, Mia was carefully taken to a recovery room where she could bond with her baby. Mark and Alice stood at the threshold, their hearts swelling with mixed emotions. They had endured so much pain and uncertainty, yet the sight of their daughter cradling her child filled them with awe. The baby, a small bundle wrapped in a soft blanket, looked so fragile and innocent, a living testament to Mia's strength. When they entered the room, Mia looked up, her eyes bright with a mixture of exhaustion and joy. "Meet your grandson," she said softly, tears of happiness streaming down her cheeks. Mark and Alice approached, their hearts brimming with love as they gazed at the tiny face before them. "It's a boy," Alice whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "What will you name him?" Mia smiled, her face lighting up with pride. "Oliver," she replied, the name rolling off her tongue like a sweet melody. It was a name filled with hope, a fresh start for both Mia and her child. As they held Oliver for the first time, the weight of their previous struggles began to lift, replaced by an overwhelming sense of unity and purpose. As days passed, the families began to navigate the complexities of their new reality. Mark and Alice made a conscious effort to create a nurturing environment for Mia and Oliver. They set up a cozy nursery, filling it with soft toys and gentle colors, transforming the once quiet corner of their home into a vibrant space filled with love. Meanwhile, Jacob and his parents stepped up, determined to support Mia and Oliver as well. They brought meals to the Williams home and offered to help with chores, trying to bridge the gap that had formed between their families. Sarah and Alice often found themselves sharing stories, bonding over their experiences as mothers, and their growing connection began to heal the wounds of the past. Despite the sense of community forming around them, the path ahead was not without its challenges. Mia had to confront the realities of motherhood at a tender age, and there were moments when the weight of her responsibilities felt overwhelming. Yet, every time she looked at Oliver, her heart filled with resolve. She knew she would do anything to protect and nurture him. One afternoon, as Mia sat in the garden holding Oliver, Mark approached her, his expression filled with pride. "You've been so brave, Mia," he said, his voice warm and encouraging. "I know this hasn't been easy, but we're all here for you." Mia looked up at her father, her heart swelling with gratitude. "I just want to do right by him," she replied, her eyes glistening with determination. "I want to be a good mom." Mark knelt beside her, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You already are. Just take it one day at a time. We're a family, and we'll figure this out together." As time went on, both families found themselves drawn closer together. The shared experience of raising Oliver created a bond that transcended the pain of the past. Mia and Jacob began to attend parenting classes together, learning how to care for a newborn while still navigating the complexities of their young lives. In the evenings, the families would gather for dinner, laughter filling the air as they shared stories and created new memories. It was a beautiful transformation, a testament to their collective strength and willingness to overcome the adversities they faced. One particular evening, as the sun set and cast a warm glow over their gathering, the families sat together in the backyard. Mia cradled Oliver in her arms, while Jacob sat beside her, his presence a constant source of support. The warmth of the moment enveloped them, and the laughter of their parents created a comforting backdrop. Mark raised his glass in a toast. "To family," he said, his voice steady and filled with love. "To new beginnings and the strength we find in each other." Everyone raised their glasses, echoing the sentiment, their hearts swelling with hope and gratitude. As the weeks turned into months, both families continued to grow stronger. Mia adapted to her new role as a mother, embracing the challenges with a fierce determination. With every coup from Oliver, she found herself more in love with the life she was building. The once daunting journey had become a source of joy, and she cherished the small moments of motherhood. Jacob, too, began to take on more responsibility, finding ways to support Mia and bond with Oliver. He often visited, bringing small gifts and sharing in the joy of their child's milestones. Their relationship blossomed into a strong friendship built on mutual respect and a shared commitment to their son. Through the trials they faced, both families learned valuable lessons about forgiveness, resilience, and the importance of communication. The pain of the past slowly transformed into understanding, and the bond they forged became a beacon of hope for the future. As the seasons changed, so did the landscape of their lives. Mia grew more confident in her abilities as a mother, and she reveled in the joy that Oliver brought to their home. The once quiet rooms now echoed with laughter and love, a beautiful testament to the power of healing. One sunny afternoon, the families gathered in the backyard for Oliver's first birthday. The air was filled with the sounds of celebration, children laughing, balloons floating, and cake being served. As Mia watched Oliver play, surrounded by friends and family, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment wash over her. At that moment, she realized that while the path had been fraught with challenges, they had emerged stronger than ever. Together, they had created a new beginning, one filled with love, understanding, and hope for the future. The journey ahead would undoubtedly hold more obstacles, but they knew that as long as they faced them together, they could overcome anything. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the celebration, Mia knew that no matter what lay ahead, they would continue to navigate their lives with courage, love, and an unbreakable bond that would carry them through. As the festivities of Oliver's first birthday wound down, the Williams and Jacob families gathered together, united by a bond that had once seemed impossible. The joyful chaos of the day lingered in the air, filled with laughter and the chatter of children playing. The sun set in the distance, casting a warm golden hue over the scene, and it felt as if time had paused just for them. Mia sat on the grass, Oliver nestled in her arms, a smile illuminating her face as she watched the other children chase after balloons. It was a scene she had once thought was unattainable, a day filled with joy, love, and laughter after everything they had been through. In this moment, she felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought them here. Mark and Alice watched their daughter with pride, the weight of their earlier fears lifting. They could hardly recognize the young girl who had once been engulfed in uncertainty and pain. Mia had blossomed into a resilient mother, full of determination and love for her child. The bond they had forged through adversity had strengthened their family, teaching them the true meaning of support and unity. Across the yard, Jacob played with the other children, his laughter ringing out as he joined in their games. The transformation from the boy who had faced a tremendous burden to the supportive friend and co-parent was nothing short of remarkable. He had stepped up to be there for Mia and Oliver, proving that mistakes could be the foundation for growth and understanding. As the evening approached, the families gathered around a table laden with food, toasting to the moments they had shared and the memories they were creating. The conversations flowed freely, punctuated by laughter and smiles. The tension that had once divided them had been replaced by a sense of camaraderie, a shared understanding of the challenges they had faced and the love that had emerged from it. At one point, Sarah stood to address everyone, her eyes shining with emotion. "I want to thank each of you for being here today. This past year has been a journey for all of us, but together, we've found a way to heal," she said, her voice steady. "We've learned so much about family and the power of love. Oliver is a symbol of that love, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for all of us." The families nodded in agreement, their hearts swelling with shared sentiment. They recognized the importance of the bond they had formed and the lessons they had learned along the way. Each of them had played a role in supporting Mia and Oliver, and they were determined to continue to do so. As the night wore on, Mark pulled Mia aside, the two of them standing under a canopy of stars. "You've come so far, Mia," he said, his voice filled with pride. "I'm amazed at how strong you've become. You've turned a difficult situation into something beautiful." Mia's eyes glistened with unshed tears as she absorbed her father's words. "I couldn't have done it without you and Mom. You've always been there for me, even when things got tough," she replied, her voice trembling with emotion. "I just want to make you proud and give Oliver the best life possible." Mark wrapped his arms around her, pulling her into a warm embrace. "You've already done that, sweetheart. Just remember, we're all here for you, no matter what. We're a family, and that means we face everything together." As Mia stood there, enveloped in her father's love, she felt a wave of peace wash over her. The journey had been fraught with challenges, but it had also been filled with moments of joy, growth, and healing. The struggles they had faced together had forged an unbreakable bond, a testament to the power of love and family. Looking up at the stars, Mia felt hopeful about the future. She knew that life would continue to throw challenges their way, but with the support of her family and friends, she felt ready to face whatever came next. They had learned to communicate, to listen, and to grow together, transforming their pain into strength. In the days and months that followed, the families worked together to navigate the new dynamics of their lives. They attended parenting workshops, celebrated milestones, and continued to support one another in their journeys. The shared responsibility of raising Oliver brought them closer, and they cherished the moments spent together, creating a new family narrative. Mia embraced her role as a mother, discovering the joys of watching Oliver grow. She celebrated each milestone, from his first steps to his first words, and felt a sense of fulfillment that filled her heart with warmth. With Jacob by her side, they worked as a team, learning how to balance their lives while nurturing their friendship and co-parenting relationship. As seasons changed and years passed, the bonds formed during those challenging times only deepened. They became a family who celebrated not only the triumphs but also the lessons learned from adversity. They created new traditions, finding ways to honor the past while looking forward to the future. The journey was not without its bumps, but through communication and support, they navigated the complexities of their relationships with grace. Each challenge brought them closer, and every success became a shared victory. They learned that love could flourish even in the aftermath of pain, transforming their lives in ways they had never imagined. In the end, Mia realized that while her journey had begun with heartache, it had evolved into something beautiful, a tapestry woven with love, resilience, and hope. She understood that life was not defined by the challenges they faced but by how they chose to overcome them. And surrounded by family, friends, and the laughter of children, she felt a profound sense of belonging, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead with courage and love in her heart. In a quaint little town, where laughter echoed through sunlit streets, there lived a spirited girl named Mia. At just 10 years old, Mia radiated joy, her laughter a melody that brightened the lives of everyone around her. She was the heart of her family, her nurturing mother, Alice, and her loving father, Mark, cherished their vibrant daughter. Their home was a warm haven, filled with love, adventures, and countless shared moments that painted their lives with happiness. Mia was not just any child, she was a chatterbox, adored by her friends and teachers alike. Her enthusiasm for life was infectious, lighting up even the dullest of days. Friends would often flock to her, drawn by her lively spirit and captivating stories. She had a way of making everything seem magical, whether it was a trip to the park or an afternoon spent playing in the backyard. However, as the weeks turned into months, subtle signs of change began to shadow her once bright spirit. It started with small complaints. Mia often mentioned feeling stomach pains, a slight discomfort that seemed to come and go. Initially dismissed as typical childhood woes, these complaints became more frequent. Soon, her lively chatter faded into a quieter demeanor, and Alice and Mark exchanged worried glances, sensing something deeper was troubling their beloved daughter. They felt a shift in the air, a growing concern that something was amiss in Mia's world. One evening, while preparing dinner, Alice caught sight of Mia sitting silently at the kitchen table, her gaze fixed on the floor. The lively spark that once danced in her eyes had dimmed, replaced by an unsettling quietness. "Mia, sweetheart, what's on your mind?" Alice asked gently, her maternal instincts kicking in. Mia shrugged, offering a small, non-committal response. Alice felt a pang of worry as she studied her daughter, knowing that the changes were not merely a phase. Days passed, and the situation did not improve. Mark, who had been keeping a close eye on Mia, noticed the gradual decline in her spirit. Once the embodiment of joy, Mia now seemed preoccupied, lost in her thoughts. He tried to engage her in conversation, hoping to draw her out of her shell, but she often replied with vague answers, leaving him feeling more helpless with each attempt. Their close-knit family, once filled with laughter and shared adventures, felt the weight of an unspoken concern. Mark and Alice began to share their worries with one another, each expressing a growing anxiety that Mia's troubles were more than just a fleeting moment of childhood sadness. It felt as if they were on the precipice of something significant, yet they could not quite grasp what it was. Then came the moment that would change everything. One day, Alice noticed a slight bulge in Mia's stomach, a physical manifestation of the concerns that had been building over time. Alarmed, she called Mark, and together they rushed Mia to the hospital, their hearts pounding with dread. The sterile smell of antiseptic greeted them as they entered the bustling emergency room, amplifying the anxiety that had taken root in their hearts. After a series of tests that felt like an eternity, the doctor delivered the unimaginable news: Mia was several months pregnant. The revelation hit them like a tidal wave, leaving them reeling in disbelief. Mark felt a surge of anger and confusion, while Alice was engulfed by grief and guilt, struggling to comprehend how this could happen to their little girl. The weight of the situation pressed down on them, and the room felt suffocating as they grappled with the implications of what they had just learned. As they sat in shock, the implications of the news began to sink in. Questions flooded their minds: how had this happened? Who was responsible? They had spent years nurturing and protecting Mia, and now they felt as if their world had crumbled around them. They were left to navigate a reality they had never anticipated, thrust into a whirlwind of emotions that left them feeling vulnerable and afraid. In the days that followed, their family dynamic changed dramatically. Mark's protective instincts kicked in, and he became determined to uncover the truth behind Mia's situation. He felt a fierce need to shield her from the world that had betrayed her innocence. Alice, on the other hand, was consumed by guilt, replaying every moment in her mind, questioning whether she could have missed signs or signals that could have prevented this. As they embarked on a tumultuous journey to seek answers, both parents found themselves grappling with their emotions, and the search for the truth became an all-consuming mission. They questioned everyone Mia had interacted with, hoping to piece together the puzzle of how their vibrant daughter had found herself in such a dire situation. Mia, meanwhile, remained confused and frightened, unaware of the full weight of the situation she was in. When gently asked about her pregnancy, she insisted that no one had hurt her, her innocence and confusion deepening her parents' sense of helplessness. The shadows of doubt loomed large, and with each passing day, the need for clarity became more urgent. The once happy household was now filled with tension and uncertainty, each family member grappling with their own feelings of despair, anger, and confusion. As they moved forward, the search for answers became intertwined with their hopes for Mia's future, leading them down a path that would test the very foundations of their family. In this fragile state, the Williams family faced a daunting reality, one that would challenge their perceptions of love, trust, and resilience. The journey ahead promised to be a tumultuous one, fraught with challenges that would force them to confront the harsh truths of their situation, and to find the strength to support each other through the storm. Little did they know, the journey to uncover the truth would ultimately lead them to a deeper understanding of their family bonds, and what it truly meant to love unconditionally. Thank you for listening. See you in the next episode. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. Goodbye.